Hello Dragons, and welcome to this instructional video for Lesson 14, Part 2, Local Government Services and Revenue. The main idea behind this civics lesson is funded by taxes and service fees. Local governments provide vital services such as utilities, education, and public safety. With that in mind, by the end of watching this video, you'll be able to summarize the role local governments play in providing public education, describe the utilities provided by local governments, identify examples of health and welfare programs, explain how zoning laws help local governments control land use, examine local governments' contribution to public safety, and analyze the ways local governments pay for the services they provide. Now that the outcomes for this lesson have been shared with you, let's get started. "Skateboarding is dangerous," said the mother of a child who had been run into by a skateboarder. She asked the city council to ban skateboards in public places. "That's not fair," said a teenager at the council meeting. "Then we'd have no place to skate." He asked the city to build a skate park for skateboarders. "We ask local governments to help us in many ways. They provide utilities, or services needed by the public, such as water, gas, and electricity. They build parks, schools, and roads. They plan for community growth. Officials make hundreds of decisions in delivering these services. For example, they may have to decide whether a hole in a road that serves only 2 houses should be fixed, or whether to cut water use during a dry spell. Every time officials decide to handle a problem in a certain way, they are making policy. If the council bans skateboarding, it is making a public safety policy. Another policy might be to build a skate park. Policy decisions often depend on money. Because no government has all the money it needs, officials must decide which services to offer. The council might decide that it does not have enough money to build a skate park, but it will allow skateboarders to use an empty parking lot. Perhaps the park could be built if skateboarders were charged money to use it. The service that local governments spend the most money on is education. Local governments, counties, cities, and school districts, are in charge of providing all public education from elementary school through high school. Some are also in charge of 2-year colleges. Local school boards build schools and hire teachers and staff to run them. Many local boards have a strong say in what courses will be taught. The federal and state governments are also important in public education. State officials set standards for school employees and buildings. State governments have a strong say in how schools are run because they pay about 1/3 or more of schooling costs. The federal government helps to pay for buildings, school lunch programs, and programs for children with special needs. Local and state governments often do not agree about which of them should have greater control over state education money. State officials make sure state standards are met and that children in all school districts have equal opportunities. On the other hand, local control can be good for schools because local citizens know what the students need. You may not even notice some local government services. However, you would certainly notice if you no longer had them. These government services are the utilities: water, gas, electricity, sewage treatment plants, and garbage collection. In many cases, water and sewage treatment plants are owned and run by local governments. Communities often arrange for private companies to supply gas and electricity and to pick up garbage. The state makes rules to make sure the companies deliver good services at fair rates. Utilities are best provided at the local level, where they can be planned to fit a community's needs. In Emmanuel, Alaska, the ground freezes in winter. Sewer pipes are not put underground because they would freeze too. Instead, sewer pipes made of materials that will not freeze are laid above ground, a method that fits the Arctic climate. Millions of Americans are poor, too ill to work, or unable to find jobs or homes. Many people help the needy, but it is a very big job. Local governments play a part by offering health and child care, training people for jobs, and providing low-cost places to live. Most programs giving public assistance or welfare are paid by federal, state, and local governments together. However, local officials carry out the programs. The city of Atlanta, Georgia, for example, was recently recognized for its success in using federal funds to improve low-cost public housing in several Atlanta neighborhoods. Communities also look after public health. In many cases, local officials carry out state health laws. Local health officials inspect restaurants, markets, hotels, and water to be sure that state and federal standards are met. Many communities also make sure that federal and state laws to control pollution are obeyed. Have you ever noticed that homes and businesses are in separate areas of your community? This is the result of zoning, local rules that divide a community into areas and tell how the land in each area can be used. For example, zoning may keep a factory from being built next to your home. Zoning is a tool used by local governments to plan and control the growth of their communities. The people who plan communities think about where roads, parks, factories, and homes should be built. They must also think about how a new factory will affect the lives of people in the community. They must think about who will be using a park and whether it will need a playground or picnic tables. Will a new road bring too much traffic into downtown? Are there enough low-cost homes and apartments for families with low incomes? Planners must also look at how development affects the environment. Will the new factory have anti-pollution controls? Planning is made up of many steps. A local government appoints a planning commission to set goals and get information about the community, such as its growth rate and types of businesses. Most commissions are made up of interested citizens, such as builders, environmentalists, and business leaders. Commission members work with a staff that looks at requests from builders and reads reports about what building will do to the environment. The staff tells the commission what they think should be done about each request. Once the commission decides what it will do, it presents the matter to the city council or county board, which makes the final decision. Some of the most heated battles in planning are over how fast communities should grow. New businesses mean more jobs and more tax money. However, new businesses may bring in more people who will need water, schools, and parks. New businesses may also bring in more traffic and pollution. The city of Reno, Nevada grew rapidly during the 1980s and 1990s. This growth brought thousands of new jobs and lots of tax money to Reno. Local officials pointed out, however, that quick growth meant the city would also need more water. Reno gets its water from the Truckee River. The city could make land use plans, but it could not make more water flow from the river. Planners must think about the resources they have as well as the short-term and long-term needs of citizens. If you had an emergency, what would you do? You might call the police or fire department or dial 911. Police officers and firefighters also look after the public safety and non-emergencies. The police help citizens stop crime by teaching them how to keep people from breaking into their homes. The fire department checks for fire hazards, such as faulty wiring, and teaches safety rules to children. Local governments also hire people to make sure that safety rules called codes are followed. A fire code may say that all buildings must have smoke alarms. Building codes make sure that new buildings are built safely. To provide services to citizens, local governments need money. Like state governments, local governments depend on several sources of revenue. More than 25% of local government revenue comes from property tax, a tax on land and buildings. The county assessor decides how much the property is worth and charges the property owner a fixed percentage of that value. Many people feel property tax is fair because the more property that citizens own, the more services they use, such as water and fire protection. Some communities bring in money through other taxes, such as local sales tax. About 3,300 local governments in more than a dozen states put an income tax on the salaries of people who work there. The idea is to collect money from daytime citizens who use city services during the workday but live somewhere else. Cities often charge money for services such as inspecting buildings to see that they meet safety codes. Communities also get money from bridge tolls, park entrance fees, and parking meters. Some local governments make money by running businesses. For instance, the city of Naperville, Illinois runs a parking garage. It brings in money while providing parking spaces for people who work and shop in the city. Government-owned utilities, such as electric companies, also bring in money and give low-cost services to local citizens and businesses. When revenue from taxes, fees, and city-owned businesses is not enough to cover their costs, local governments can borrow money. For short-term needs, they may borrow from banks. To pay for big projects, such as school buildings, communities borrow money by selling bonds. Local governments also receive intergovernmental revenue, money given by one level of government to another. Federal and state governments often give money to local communities. This money is called a grant. Grants are a way to make sure that services of national or state importance are provided at the local level. Some grants are for special uses, such as summer job programs for youth or large building projects. Others are block grants for general uses, such as education. Block grants allow local officials to decide how to best use the money. Most communities face problems in paying for services. The demand for services is generally greater than the amount of money available to the community to pay for them. Sources of money may run dry. Another problem is that the power to tax is controlled by the state. The state spells out what kinds of taxes may be collected and what the money may be used for. Large cities can have a particularly difficult time balancing the money in the city treasury with the need for services. Ed Rendell, the former mayor of Philadelphia, discussed this challenge when presenting his year 2000 budget to the city council. In a city where our needs are so great and where our resources remain so limited, Rendell told the council, it is an absolutely critical part of our job to reject countless legitimate and worthy demands for public funds. So that's the way it is with Lesson 14, Part 2, Local Government Services and Revenue. At this point, you should know that local government provides many of the services citizens use daily. Local governments spend more money depending on the needs of citizens and the ability of revenue, and local governments can raise money through various means. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel to have the entire catalog of civics videos available at your fingertips. Click the subscribe button and then click the follow bell to receive notifications as to when the channel is updated. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll catch you in class, Dragons.